Back in 2019, Foolish Bailey released a video titled Clayton Kershaw's Prime is Over. Let's talk about it. He analyzed Kershaw's dominance at his peak and how he continued to be one of baseball's best pitchers even as he slowly exited his prime. Well, here we are 4 years later, in 2023, and rate-wise, Clayton Kershaw is still among the best in the majors and the most valuable pitcher on the Dodgers. At 35 years old, in his 16th major league season. How valuable? Well, in 2023, Clayton Kershaw still leads the Dodgers in innings pitched and ERA, despite missing an entire month plus on the IL. And consider this. The Dodgers starting rotation just had its worst month since moving to Los Angeles with a 6.18 ERA in July. Not coincidentally, that's the month that Kershaw missed with shoulder soreness. But how exactly has he been able to thrive even amidst diminishing stuff, arm mileage, and injuries? Well, from an objective standpoint, Kershaw is simply doing more of the same old. Literally. Statistically, Clayton Kershaw was the hardest pitcher to get a hit off of in the 2010s. This is because Kershaw mastered the art of pitch tunneling. Tunneling, quite simply, is when you make one pitch look exactly like another based on where you release the ball. In Clayton's case, he tunnels his fastball and slider impeccably. Here's a 2023 visual showing where Kershaw releases his curveball relative to his fastball. You can see how he releases the curve just a few inches higher than his four-seamer. And now here's a visual showing where he releases his slider relative to his fastball. You see that ugly cluster? That's what you want. That's virtually flawless tunneling. And when these two pitches travel on the same plane for so long, then diverge at the last split second, good luck. That's what helped Kershaw win his first Cy Young Award in 2011, and it's still a huge part of Clayton's success in 2023. But he's going about it differently in 2023, and really for a while now. For his career, Kershaw has thrown his fastball-slider combo on average just under 85% of the time. However, back in 2011, Kershaw threw his fastball about 2/3 of the time, and his slider about 1/4 of the time. Fast forward to 2023, and now he actually throws his slider more often than he throws his fastball. And in this modern era of baseball, it's not hard to understand why. You want to throw your best pitch, preferably your best swing and miss pitch, as often as possible. And Kershaw's fastball is simply not his best pitch. Look at it like this. Back in 2015, Kershaw's average fastball velocity hovered around 94.3 miles per hour. Fast forward just 3 years later to 2018, and his fastball averaged only 90.8 miles per hour. It's not a surprise that his fastball became relatively easier to hit. Not coincidentally, 2018 was the first time that Kershaw threw his slider more than he did his fastball, while he reversed this trend in 2019 and during the shortened 2020 season. Once 2021 came around, Kershaw permanently transformed to sliders first, fastball second, with that big Uncle Charlie sprinkled in every now and then. Oh, and let's talk a little bit about that Uncle Charlie, or as Vince Scully once named it, Public Enemy Number 1.
Holy mackerel! He just broke off Public Enemy Number 1. Look at this thing.
In 2021, Kershaw threw his curveball about 15% of the time, his lowest usage of that pitch since 2014. Surely but slowly, he's been using this pitch with a bit more frequency. In 2022, when he finished with a 2.28 ERA, his lowest in a full-ish season since 2016, he threw his curve 16% of the time. This season, he's throwing it nearly 18% of the time, which would be his highest usage of the curve since 2015. And it's just another tool for Clayton to keep hitters off balance and constantly guessing. Chronic back injuries and the occasional shoulder injury have no doubt sapped Kershaw of some of his physical power. But the great ones, the elite ones, are able to adapt, not merely to survive, but to thrive. For Kershaw, he adapted by switching up his pitch mix, anchored by that elite Hall of Fame slider. And yes, his slider is still elite. As the Baseball Bits video mentioned, Clayton's prime is generally considered to be between 2011 to 2017. Well, since 2018, these are the two starting pitchers who have a lower ERA than Clayton Kershaw, Jacob deGrom, and Justin Verlander. That's it.
That's it.
I believe there's one last element to the Clayton Kershaw story. It's a little more subjective, but I believe it's crucial when talking about Kershaw, an almost phoenix-like figure who's risen from the ashes of his October's past. It's October 9th, 2019. The do-or-die Game 5 of the National League Division Series against the Washington Nationals at Dodgers Stadium. Clayton Kershaw, pitching in relief, gives up game-tying home runs to Washington superstars Anthony Rendon and Juan Soto. Of course, the Dodgers end up losing the game and the series in extra innings. Their 2019 season has just come to a bitter end. In his post-game interview, this is what Kershaw has to say about his post-season struggles.
Everything people say is true right now about the postseason. I understand that. Nothing I can do about it right now. It's a terrible feeling. It really is.
That's step one. Clayton Kershaw is admitting that what once might have worked before is just no longer the case. Here's step two.
Yeah, I'm not going to hang my head and be here next year and try and do the same thing and continue to try and do it every single year.
Whereas other people might back away from their problems, Clayton is ready to tackle them head on. And unlike many people, these aren't just cliches and sound bites coming out of Kershaw's mouth. During the 2019-2020 offseason, Clayton Kershaw, the three-time Cy Young Award winner, NL MVP, and future first-ballot Hall of Famer, visited Driveline Baseball, the biomechanics lab in Kent, Washington that attempts to maximize the potential of wide-eyed high school amateurs and struggling veteran professionals alike. Clayton was neither, but he took the initiative to seek out help from an outside party because he felt that something needed to change if he was to remain among baseball's elite. The man notorious for not speaking to teammates on game day, for throwing exactly 34 pitches in his bullpen sessions, and for running out to the field at exactly 6:23 p.m., decided to disrupt the system. He decided to adapt, and adapt he did. That's something that the numbers and analytics can't quantify. That's pure heart right there. That's the competitor known as Clayton Edward Kershaw. He may not be the guy who throws 230 innings and strikes out 300 batters anymore, but he will always be held to such a high standard, probably unfairly, because for a long time, he was the undisputed best pitcher in the world. The truth is, he's now only merely one of the best pitchers in the world. But over the last decade and a half, there aren't many other pitchers, if any at all, that you could say gave you the best chance to win on any given day. For 2 consecutive years, Kershaw has left more money and more years on the table to remain with the Dodgers on one-year deals. In part, Clayton does so because, in his own words, he doesn't want to be merely average. Well, here we are 15 years after his major league debut, and Clayton is far from average. No one knows exactly when Kersh will hang up his cleats. It stands to reason that time is coming sooner rather than later. But in reality, it's a mystery to most of the baseball world. You know it's not a mystery though? Clayton Kershaw is still among baseball's elite.